Ooh, so many beautiful gifts to pick from. I had no idea which one to take. The one on the left or the one on the right?
Whoa! Hold your horses, Rob, you blind. You won't be stealing any Christmas joy tonight.
Santa Claus, what are you doing here?
Why, I'm protecting the holiday season, of course. Now it's time for you to take the consequences for your actions.
Halt, you holiday heist mastermind. Your thieving days end here. Santa Claus, it's good to see you again, my friend.
Sergeant Be Safe, you're one of our national heroes. It's always good to see you too.
What's happening? Who are you?
Fear not, my good family. I'm Sergeant Be Safe, your protector and guardian of joy. I just saved your Christmas. I caught Rob you blind red-handed. Hey, it's Sergeant Be Safe and Santa. It's Santa Claus. Thank you for saving our Christmas, Sergeant Be Safe.
Oh, you kids weren't supposed to see me, but remember, the magic of Christmas lies in the togetherness we share with our friends and family. Let this be a reminder to cherish each other during this joyous occasion in this wonderful season. Now I must be off. Back to the North Pole I go, but I will forever remember this family and cherish these moments.
Rob You Blind is off to jail again.
And Sergeant Be Safe saved Christmas. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
Remember, folks, lock your doors at night, and that's your tip of the day to have a safe holiday.
Has to say, very important message.
Ladies, stop with the filters, okay? Really stop with the filters, because you become a missing person. We're out here looking for Miss America when we should be looking for Sasquatch.
Before we get down to the jail, are you hungry? Because the jail won't feed you. I'm being super nice right now. Before we get down to the jail, are you hungry?
Welcome to Black and Blue, the podcast that brings you the untold stories behind the badge. Every week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we dive deep into the lives of our unsung heroes, the first responders and law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line to protect us all. So join us as we humanize the badge. We shed light on the incredible individuals who wear it proudly, from rookies just starting out on their journey to seasoned vets with years of experience, even retirees who continue to make a difference in their communities. Come with us and discover the trainings that mold us. The unforgettable experiences that make us. And the publications that inspire us to push forward. So buckle up and get ready to embark on a thrilling journey through the lives of those who protect and serve. This is the Heartbeat, Black and Blue. Black and Blue, where the stories behind the badge are true. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another weekly episode of Black and Blue. The podcast is just for you. I'm your host. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker. I'm also known as Ecclesiastics 302. I'm also known as the coldest code switching detective. And my name is spelled Clee, C-L-E-E, continuing law enforcement edutainment. And that's exactly what we're going to do tonight. This podcast, Black and Blue, we highlight first responders and law enforcement officers, whether they're rookie, seasoned, or retiree. And we discuss their trainings, their experiences, and their publications, and we're not going to fall short today. We're having a lot of fun doing this. This is a live, interactive podcast, so make sure you give me those likes. Make sure you tag, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and all of you that are on there, make sure that you put something in the comment section. If you just want a shout out, like Rich Oakley did, good evening, everyone, or Seti P, or Lisa Pertu, or Gregory Foster, or Shayla T. Thank you guys for putting something in the comment section. If you have a question, put it in the comment section as well, because we're streaming on 5 different platforms. That's right, 5 different platforms. We're on 2 on Facebook, we're on 2 on YouTube, and 1 on LinkedIn. So therefore, I can't see all the comments, but I believe I can see most of them. Sometimes there's a problem with the LinkedIn comments, but I see Bobby Edwards on here talking about let's go. Let's go. Thank you. Shout out to you for making this connection, because this guest I would not have ever met if it wasn't for you. So I'm glad that you're on here. Thank you very much. We got the noisy child. Stay safe, good people. Thank you. Absolutely. We're going to have a lot of fun. Like I said, this podcast, we go live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time weekly. And we talk about trainings, experiences, and publications. We're not going to fall short today. We're going to have a lot of fun. I got a special guest in the background. I'll bring him to the stage in a minute, but I got to get these announcements out here. You see workwithclee.com. That is the sponsorship for One Way Publishing. That's the website for workwithclee.com. And One Way Publishing. One Way Publishing is the book publishing company that you see behind me. Those are some of the 5 books that I've either written or helped publish from onewaypublishing.com. One Way Publishing Company is the book publishing company that their motto is they can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. So if you ever thought about writing your own book, whether fiction, nonfiction, cookbook, autobiography, anything that you may think of, One Way Publishing can get that done for you. They also sponsored this platform, Black and Blue, the podcast. They also sponsored the Sergeant Be Safe cartoons, like you just saw in the beginning. Sergeant Be Safe saved Christmas. Thank God for him. But, they sponsor that. If you ever wanted to be a voiceover for Sergeant Be Safe, then workwithclee.com. It's in the comment section and it's scrolling below. That's how you want to do that. If you ever want to be featured on this platform, again, that's the same process, workwithclee.com, and it's scrolling below. Today, we're going to talk about the rise of our inner hero. And we got a special guest. I'm excited to have him here. And I'll introduce him briefly. Some of you may know him, others of you may not, but we're streaming it, like I said, on Spotify. It'll be uploaded onto there as well. I know I'm going all over the place because I'm trying to piece everything together so I can go ahead and get to the meat and potatoes of this interview, because we're having fun. It's cold up here in the northern part, or right here, central Pennsylvania is cold. It was snowing this morning. The winds are blowing and hitting the window right now, but we're still going to get through it. And I know my guest also, it was cold there as well. The coldest, like we all say. But without further ado, we're going to get right to it. I'm gonna stop stalling. I'm going to bring him to the stage here. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you guys got to know our guest right now. He's a husband. He's a father. He's also currently a state trooper. He's an educator. He's a business owner, an investigator, an accident reconstructionalist, a public speaker, a former football player. I say that proudly from being a former football player myself. He's got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and sociology. He's an instructor for the HUGHES Initiative, and you guys will understand what that means and what that is. And more importantly, he's also another author, Dominate Your First Year as a Cop. Ladies and gentlemen, I got my copy. Make sure you guys get yours. My copy is autographed. Can you see that? So I hope you guys get your copy too. It's going to be on his website. His website's going to be scrolling below. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to bring him to the stage. We got RC Hughes III. RC, are you there?
I am here, Clee. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm wonderful. I got tongue-tied a little bit, but we made it through. Right. RC, man, I thank you for making yourself available and coming on this platform. I know we got a ton of questions. We got a ton of conversation. I see there's a couple comments already on the floor. I'm not ignoring you guys. I will get to you. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Well, as you have done an excellent job with the introduction, I've been in law enforcement for about 10 years now. Mm-hmm. I'm a Christian. I'm a father of 5 children. I'm a husband. I'm an educator through the Hughes Initiative. I love the Lord. The Lord has called me to further this ministry that he's given me, which is the Hughes Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Every day I wake up with a new idea, a new point of view to try to make law enforcement better and try to educate the general public as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get your questions ready. I see you, homeschool CEO. Awesome. Can't wait to hear it. We got Rich Oakley chiming in from Virginia. Lisa Pertu saying hello, RC. Thank you, guys. Make sure you guys tag, like, share, subscribe. We're going to have a lot of fun. But RC, I'm going to jump right into the conversation. I'm going to jump right in to this interview because we got a ton of information to cover in a short amount of time. But first and foremost, I know we did see the Ravens succumb to the Eagles, and I know you're a Titans fan.
That's right.
Yeah. So how did this past weekend go for us for football?
As far as the Titans go,
yeah.
Listen, because I have these conversations a lot on social media with people. This is a new team. It's a work in progress, and it's a process. You have a second-year general manager, a brand new head coach, not a rookie quarterback, but a quarterback who has only had less than 20 games starting. Mm-hmm. You also brought in a lot of new pieces to work together as an offense and as a defense. And from personal experience, defense is much easier to grasp than an offense is. So there was only one player on that team from last year, well, two, Nick Westbrook-Akine and Dylan Radins, who actually started and played a significant amount besides Tajay Spears. He's not the starter. So you bring in, call it 8 new pieces. And what we have seen, and if you watch the Titans, and a lot of people don't, you've seen the process starting to work. At the very beginning of the season, it was ugly, right? Nobody was on the same page, learning new blocking assignments. We have Bill Callahan from the Cleveland Browns, the best offensive line coach in the world, and his blocking scheme is diverse and complex, and you don't pick that up just in practice. You can only really get that understanding from live reps, but you know, it's winner loss in the NFL. So we've lost a lot of games. I'm very excited for this team as they get to know each other better. I've said from the very beginning, I'm not concerned about this year. Show me this team in year 2 when these guys have been
firing off on all cylinders. Gotcha.
But also, Cleve, now wait a minute, Cleve. You got to know as well, I am a diehard Volunteers fan. And my Volunteers are set to go to the first college football playoff. We may even host a game, and we may even host that dreaded The Ohio State University Buckeye team.
Hey, well, either way, it'll be interesting. It'll be a lot of fun, and it's a fun time of the year with sports and holiday and a lot of things going on. And I see Dr. Sauce is in here. Thank you for tuning in. Our special guest who was on here last week, ladies and gentlemen, make sure if you missed that, check that out. She's tuning in from Arizona. Thank you for tuning in. But let me ask you this. What started you with the Hughes Initiative? What exactly is that, and what does that mean to you? Let me get that banner flowing.
Clee, the Lord is kind. This is my ministry. My sister, who is an educator as well, she told me when I first got into law enforcement that I need to start a business teaching police officers. And I'll be honest with you, I was terrified because I didn't think I had the chops to go in front of police officers. I didn't have the experience, but the Lord has called me to do 2 things. That is to educate new police officers and to educate the general public with the understanding that the new police officers are the ones that are on the streets meeting the public. They're the ones having the interactions. I could spend my time with guys with 10, 15, 20 years on, but it's realistic that those gentlemen and women are in specialized positions.
Right.
They also may be in patrol, but that's a hard wall to climb over because of their feelings and mindsets that they have. But new police officers, I want to prepare them for what they're walking into. And I think we don't do a great enough job as an industry of doing that. So the Hughes Initiative is about educating new police officers and educating the general public as well, leveling the playing field. And I'm sure later on we'll get into how I go about doing that.
Gotcha. Thank you for making that clear. I know we've got the police academy, whether it's municipal or state or whatever kind of academy that you're in, whatever kind of first responder, if it's basic training, whatever it may be called, is some sort of initiation or some sort of initial process to get you to understand how the functions work and to become cyclic. Through the process, you wrote your book, Dominate Your First Year as a Cop, as well. Congratulations to you, because from author to author, it's not easy to actually start and complete and publish a book. It's a lot of work that goes into it. But how important, this is an important book, how important is to dominate your first year as a cop? Why would you write a book on that? That's a great topic.
Through research, I found that police officers leave the industry between year 1 and year 5 at the highest rate. So what that tells me is that they are not being prepared with the proper mindset of what they're walking into. This is public service. It can be thankless at times. You have to be here for the right reasons. And a lot of police officers who start out aren't here for the right reasons, or they have a fantasy mindset, an idea of what it's like from television or from what they see on the internet. And that's just not the case. So when I wrote the book, Dominate Your First Year as a Cop, I wrote it from my experience, my perspective, because when I first started in law enforcement, I struggled with a massive identity crisis. I did not know it was going to be the way that it was. I had great coaches, but I've found also through talking to seasoned police officers, it's a high likelihood, unfortunately, that you may not get a great coach. You may get two bad coaches. And if you do get bad coaches, or there are questions that you don't get answered from people that you work with, that could set you back at least 2 years, if not longer. You develop bad habits, just like when I taught myself how to swim before I went to the academy. I just learned just flying by the seat of my pants. But when I got a swim coach, we spent a significant amount of time on the refinement of my technique. And so with the book, Dominate Your First Year as a Cop, I want to give you a proper point of view, a proper perspective, a proper point of reference, so that you can start. You may not know the questions you need to ask, but once you read the book, you'll have the question and the answer as well when you're in your coaching period and throughout your first year.
I like that. It's like a quick guide on what to expect and how to prepare yourself mentally to go through the entire process. You know, one of my favorite pages in the book was page 14, and I wish I could go back in time and actually give advice to myself on this one. And this one talks about what questions to ask your FTO. Correct. And I think that is a very good topic to discuss as well, because when you're brand new, for one, you may not want to ask a lot of questions. I know when I came in, you don't want to ask questions, listen and do what you're told, or you come in and you start asking too many questions and you don't want to be overbearing and annoyed, but you want to learn, you want to absorb it. And so you'll pick it up, just stop. And to alleviate the process, it kind of goes into what are important questions that you should ask and what are some that you can pick up along the way. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
When I first started, and we've talked a couple of times, I'll hold anybody hostage when I'm looking for help. I'll have a conversation with anybody. So when I first started, there isn't a person that I work with that I didn't ask 3, 4, 5 questions of. That's not everybody's. That's not how everybody thinks. That's not everybody's personality. I don't want police officers to have questions, be afraid to ask questions, and then make a mistake out there. Because after your field training period, you're on your own.
It's on you,
especially with the lack of officers that we have now. You're going to calls by yourself. There's not the place to have a mistake. And a lot of times, all that does is that damages the image of our industry as well. So I put that in the book because I realize people have questions. They may be afraid to ask, but they need the information anyway, regardless of whether or not it gets asked or not, or taught or not.
Absolutely. And we got Bobby Edward in here talking about this is fire. It's fire. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to him again, because he's the one who made this connection. Got Maurice Hicks in here talking about this is interesting. Yes, and a comment on the floor from Lisa Pertu. Any law enforcement position is focused on policing, particularly areas within their community. There is the intention to serve the public in the best light. However, self-care is not prioritized.
Can I jump all over that, Clay?
I said, yeah, please do.
I told you when I first started, I struggled with an identity crisis. My first 3 years of law enforcement on a personal level, not professionally, on a personal level, were very damaging to me emotionally, mentally, and even physically to a certain degree. I was going into work with a very negative mindset about myself because I didn't feel like I was good enough to do the job, even though I was doing it. We don't prepare new police officers for the stress once you take the uniform off. Right. We put you in scenarios throughout the training. We have trainings after you graduate from the academies, but the day-to-day stress of being a police officer, the change in mindset, the change in mentality, the loss of family or friends who don't support your decisions. If you have negative coping mechanisms that you're already using, the enhancement of them, because we teach police officers that you have to be on duty 24/7. You never know when anything can happen. But realistically, that's not always the case, especially in your personal life. This isn't a movie. If you're a regular police officer who works 25 minutes from your hometown, there's no need for you to think that way. You have to take this uniform off, be who you are as a person. I learned this in my first 3 years, and I learned it even more when I was, when I got with my wife, and she would tell me all the time, I don't need a police officer here in the house. I need a husband. I need a father. I need a friend. That's what I need here. I don't need a police officer. It's not all black and white. There has to be some gray because you're dealing with people as well. So that is why what Lisa said is very important. We don't prioritize self-care. There's a huge stigma around mental health, but one of the reasons I created the E.A.R model, which we'll talk about later, is because I am tired of seeing police officers struggling and then go down a dark path and end up leaving the industry, spiraling, and nobody ever says anything to them, and they don't feel safe enough to reach out to the resources that departments put in place.
Yep, I agree. Many times it affects your family and friends because you unintentionally bring it home. There's things that we can't unsee. That is 100% truth.
Correct.
And we talk about the slippery slope and spiraling. And so many times on this platform, we talk about the number one killer in first responders and law enforcement are ourselves. And because we end up taking ourselves out by self-deleting, by not getting the proper help or peer or counseling that's needed, or because of things that some of our bad habits that we may have in the beginning, like you said before, enhance throughout the process, then all of a sudden, having a sip of alcohol socially, maybe once a week, turns into you need it for breakfast with coffee. You need it as soon as you get off the shift. You have choir practice at the end of your shift because you just witnessed a fatality. You just saw domestic. You just got cussed out by an angry mom at school for whatever reason. And all of those things, they bounce off of us, but eventually they absorb and get through, and you don't even know it to the point where you're starting to get tarnished, where you're not being able to release all that, those problems and negativity.
Correct. That's absolutely true. That's what happens. We don't support each other in that way where we recognize that someone is having a problem. And even if we do, we tend to lean to the idea, well, they'll figure it out, or I went through something similar, so they have to be able to manage it themselves as well. When a lot of times what a person really needs is just someone to recognize, say, hey, I see that you're down. I see that, you've changed. Your attitude has changed. The way you wear your uniform has changed. You're coming to work late. Just for somebody to recognize so that they can say, yes, I'm struggling with X, Y, or Z, and I think I need help, but I want to do it in a way that doesn't put me on blast.
Yeah.
Like I know, Clee, police officers are like, and my wife and my sister may get offended, like nurses, gossip central. You don't want your business out there when you're dealing with something that's very negative.
Yeah, I agree. And future guest on the show, if you guys don't already know it, Rich Oakley. Nothing prepares you for the job. I agree. The sights, sounds, and smells. My demons came after me during my retirement. Yeah,
Absolutely.
he's got a tremendous story too. I can't wait to jump on that, but that'll be for a future date. So make sure you guys stay tuned, putting that plug out there. And then Lisa, again, talking about mental health needs to be prioritized and separate from the connection to the agency. I agree.
But
Yeah, RC, you kind of jumped ahead on one of the questions I couldn't wait to ask. So this is a perfect time to ask it as well, because you came up with the E.A.R model, and when I originally saw it, I was like, okay, you can tell this is an acronym, but you don't know what the acronym is for, and then all of a sudden, the ego, the arrogance, and then rage. I mean, I was like, you've got that model right there. How can, without giving up too many, without going through the course, can you break that down for us, please?
Clete, this is, I'm trying not to get emotional here because this is my baby. This is the one that I take the most pride in. I put the most effort into. I put effort into all my programs, but this is the one. I told you when I first started, I went through an identity crisis. I was ill prepared for what damaging effect the uniform would have on me. When we dive into the E.A.R model, we talk about the foundation of the ego, where it comes from an early age.
Okay.
Not just when you become a police officer, because we all have an ego. Now, how big of an ego we have depends on the pain that we've experienced throughout life, and what we've done to cope with that. When we talk about arrogance, we talk about dying on hills that we don't have to as police officers. And there's no shortage of videos of police officers standing pat on an issue when they are wrong. Right. But their arrogance won't allow them to say, you know what, I'm wrong, or I don't know the answer. Let me go find it for you. It's always no, it's my way. That's it. And that's, unfortunately, that's what we teach as well with some things like officer presence, and you have to take command. Relax. But inside of that arrogance piece, we talk about the negative, the big four negative coping mechanisms, as I like to call them: alcohol, drugs, promiscuous sex, pornography, and gambling. These are the things that I see. These are the things that people talk to me about that they struggle with as police officers. And then when we talk about rage, we dive into the police subculture and the morale of a department and the men and women who do have negative conversation all the time, how it affects a new police officer, how that can change them. There was a time in talking to seasoned police officers from every rank where it would take a police officer 10, 15 years to start to show some resentment and bitterness towards the industry. But in today's world, we're seeing that in police officers with 2 years on.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 to 5. Well, I remember hearing things that I would hear modeled in my 12th to 15th year. I've been on the job between military and being on the job. I have 20 years. I got on the job for 18 years now. Hearing between the 12th and 15 years, so many things, repetitive negative comments that I started hearing from like second and third year officers. I'm like, wow, you guys haven't even been here a decade yet, and you're saying it. You have not received this much stress so soon. But it was from more than one of them. It wasn't just an individual one-off. It was common. I was like, wow.
We talk about the negatives inside of law enforcement, and we talk about the leadership and things of those natures. And inside the E.A.R model, we talk about toxic leadership and things of that nature. But at the end of the E.A.R model, I give actionable steps for new police officers to guide them through after identifying issues within themselves, issues they may have with people they work with. I give you that. But then I just don't hammer law enforcement. That's not what I'm here for. There's plenty of people who speak ill of the industry from within the industry. I get that. But I'm here, I'm solution-based. This is my calling. This is what I do. This is how I'm going to help police officers across the country have a long and successful career, because they have the identification of the issues that they're going to face, and then the steps that they need to take in order to combat those issues and overcome them. That's what the E.A.R model is based in.
Gotcha. Got a couple comments on the floor. We got Jimmy Jamon's on here sending the fire emoji. Got another double up on the fire emoji. We must be doing a bang up job. Talking about that. We were on the topic. He likes that. Absolutely. Dr. Sauce is in here. True points 100%. You are absolutely right. And Lisa, again, we got RC. You raise a great philosophy in law enforcement: ego, arrogance, and rage. Healthy coping skills are very important. Absolutely.
Correct.
Got Seth 3, my brother-in-law, on here. I found out I need to totally disengage from the job when you get off. I keep myself busy with other organizations and community service. I agree with that as well. They kind of have friends outside the job, to have activities outside the job to kind of keep you balanced, so you're not totally feeling like you're in condition red.
Clee, the Lord saved me. There was a point in time in year 2 where I was, and I'm always transparent. I was drinking a half a bottle of Crown Royal, 6 Bud Light Platinums, smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. This was the way I coped with it. And it wasn't until I found myself on restricted duty off of the road for 9 months where the Lord was like, have you had enough? Have you had enough?
Wake up call right there.
Are you ready? And so from there, I was able to reset, get back with my connection with the Lord, and move forward with the things. And I created these things, the E.A.R Model. I wrote the book because I never want another police officer to go through what I went through.
Right.
It can be avoided, but there has to be something as a resource, as opposed to just saying, hey, I went through it, you can get through it. No. People need help. People need resources. And that's where the book and the E.A.R Model come from. And I tell cadets that so that they know I'm not just speaking from a place of research. No, this is real life transparency that I'm giving you.
You're coming from experience. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep. Unfortunately, right now we got to pause for the call. Sergeant Be Safe is going to hit us with a commercial. We're going to jump right back into it. I want to talk about policing and community service, and I also want to talk about child custody. 2 topics that you don't always hear in law enforcement, but we're going to tackle them in 1 minute. You guys stand by. Sergeant Be Safe is going to hit us with some holiday cheer. Well, you know it. The holiday season has begun. Here's a few tips that you should be aware of to stay safe. Online shopping and watch out for those fake websites that want to get your information and credit card numbers. There's scammers like Chance Wilder trying to hack into your computer. Online shopping goes up more than 50% this time of year. So keep a vigilant eye on your bank account, your computer, and any social media platform. Black Friday shopping is now here. Chance Wilder, I see you. Get out of here. If you're going out to stand in those long lines, make sure you lock your car.
That's Sergeant B.
Dress warm because it could be cold. Show the holiday spirit and be courteous to other people in line. Remember, first come, first serve. Still keep a watchful eye for problems in line. And once you finally make it inside to the store or mall, well, there's Rob You Blind. I guarantee he doesn't have the Christmas spirit. Rob You Blind is on the prowl, so be mindful of your purses, your bags, your cell phones, or any other personal items that you may sit down. And if you happen to see a crime, report it. Sergeant Be Safe, that's your tip of the day to have a safe holiday. Party pooper, be safe.
I can't believe people are so gullible.
10-4, over and out.
Subscribe now.
Those are some of the 2022. That's a holiday commercial. That's the old Sergeant Be Safe, the old intro and the old exit. But we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back from the commercial break. We're here with Black and Blue on the podcast. It's just for you. We got special guest RC Hughes III, and we taking up a tremendous chunk talking about some tremendous topics that's necessary. I'm moving on to the topics, of course, on child custody and community policing. How important, we'll jump with community policing first. How important is community policing, especially in the rational or irrational world that we live in today? It meant something different when I first came on the job as opposed to what it means now. I mean, you go ahead. I was going to keep going with just fluff. Not fluff. Talking about National Night Out, donuts with cops with crops and cops and crooks and donuts with dad and all these other things that we do to engage with the community, which I think is a good idea. But how important is it actually to have boots to the streets with community policing?
I believe this. Those positions are great. The people in those positions, they have a desire to do that stuff. The issue is a lot of times those aren't the same people who are showing up to the calls. Those aren't the same people who are making the traffic stops. So if everyone is not taking community engagement as something that they take personally every day when they go out, then the message gets lost. I've seen a change from law enforcement and also from the general public. As we'll start with the general public. It used to be that your parents would tell you how to interact with police officers.
I remember those days. Yeah.
You remember those days. And as far as law enforcement, we haven't evolved in the fact that the younger generations, they want more information. They want to communicate. They really do. They want to be heard. But if we're still at the point where we're talking about it's my way or the highway, then we don't give them an opportunity to express themselves, to explain their situation. I started off as a robot. I was trained a certain way. It took me time to learn to become a communicator. Everybody doesn't get there though. And so the younger generation, they're wanting more, they're wanting to talk more, and we aren't necessarily giving it to them as law enforcement because we are all not master communicators as well. The shift also comes from point of reference, which I'm really big on. What do you know? Who taught it to you? And what was their purpose for teaching it to you? A lot of younger people are getting their point of reference from social media platforms. And people on social media platforms are posting simply to monetize those channels to make money. So they don't take into account the impact that they're having when they post things and talk about different things.
Clickbait.
Right. Social media algorithms are set up to keep you on that platform. So if you watch one negative video of law enforcement, like it, leave a comment, you can rest assured in 2 or 3 swipes, you're going to get another one.
Yep.
Now, the bigger problem with that, with the social media aspect is it makes it look like those videos are every day. That is not the case.
Exactly.
There really aren't timestamps on a lot of those videos. They could be 5-6 years apart, but on the platform, they're coming every 2, 3 swipes. So young people and American citizens get that, and that's what they run with. We as law enforcement have not done ourselves any favors either by the way that we interact with people. Those videos are not fake, right? Clee, you and your team didn't create those negative videos. That's real life videos that people are having, experiences that people are having with police officers, and that turns people off. And we as law enforcement have to do a better job in our interactions with people.
If I can add to that as well, our interactions are very important, but all the videos that we see, some of them are just hypersensitive clips of a certain incident too. You know, you might see a 30-second clip of that incident and you're making a total judgment on that 30-second incident when that whole incident could have been a 3-hour long standoff where negotiators were brought in or whatever the situation may have been, but you only see the last 30 seconds of that. And I know a lot of times, we know a lot of work goes into a certain call, but then the action step only takes about 10 seconds for it to happen. And then it's wrapped up, whether it's positive, negative, or what have you as well. So I would also say, I know it's very difficult to find out the full story, and as law enforcement, sometimes we have to be vulnerable and get that full story out before the narrative is already assumed and grows legs and is taking a whole totally different direction than what it exactly is.
A great example of that was the Tyreek Hill situation down in Miami just the other month. From the short clip, all you see is Tyreek Hill getting arrested. But when Miami does a great job of putting out that full video, then you start to see, okay, there's issues on both sides. When I teach my program, the Citizens Police Education Program, I like to use the reference. I wish there was a channel like C-SPAN that just showed police interactions all day long. Because now the channel wouldn't make a whole lot of money and have a whole lot of viewers because it wouldn't be a whole lot going on.
It'd be very boring for most of it, to be quite honest.
But if you watch that channel long enough and you start to understand the way traffic stops are supposed to go, the routine nature of some of these calls, you would be able to see when there was an issue where the fault unfortunately lied, whether it was with the police officer or the American citizen or a combination of both.
I agree with you there. Got a couple comments on the floor. Sorry, I can't get to all of them, but there are a few comments. Rich Oakley, self-medicating, isolation are killers within themselves. I agree with that there. My guy Jimmy Jamon, who's a first responder in the United States Army. Army leads the way. Whoa. He just finished a college course on community service, or community policing. So therefore, he's all about it right now. I know, because he asked me one question, trying to dig all in my business, but we're just gonna fly past that one. Lisa, the only book I came across was New Jack, which glazed over the job, in his view, nothing for women and the dirty underbelly of correctional work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
During my time, we didn't have any of the high-tech equipment, which made communication discretion, which we were doing the job before it became very vogue. Absolutely. Sorry about that. It's hard to see with these eyes here. Continue on with the show. My bad. I promise you I can read. But we talk. Well, how did child custody get into the Hughes Initiative? When you're talking about law enforcement, we're not talking about children and youth. We're talking about child custody.
Well, unfortunately, you can't get arrested for child custody. And having made those arrests before, having conversation with men who are struggling to get custody of their kids or pay child support, but on a much more personal level, Clee, I'm a father of 5 children, 3 biological. There was a point in time in my life during that same early period when I first started law enforcement where I had a daughter who was 12. And then I had 2 children who were born 10 months apart. And from that, I was paying $2,400 a month in child support. I did not have access to my son for over 7 months. I could not see my youngest baby for over a year. But the Lord again was kind to me. And then I started to fight. And going through the family court process, which is completely different than the criminal justice or the criminal system process or the
100%
completely different. It was going through that and being successful. I said, I also need to give back to men with Custody 101, a comprehensive guide for men. It also has a workbook as well. It's a 6-video series. And I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to be a lawyer, but there is a mentality and a mindset that you must have when you want to go this route, because everything that you may think is evidence or will work in your favor, that is not the case.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that 100%, man. Being a law enforcement and then going through a civilian court, the family court, which doesn't abide by the same constitutional bylaws or anything like that. It's a different way of getting things done. I'll leave it at that for right now, because I have other plans on doing certain things down the pipeline.
Well, if you need help, I'm here.
Oh man, I see a collaboration on the horizon, honestly. But I mean, there's some things that you may think happen, don't. And the things when you go through anything that has to do with a divorce, with alimony, with spousal support, with child support, with custody, any of that stuff, it does not align with you. Then you're especially when you're still working as a first responder, you're working day shift, night shift, rotating shifts. Right. You don't have things set up for scheduling for custody or just to have time for recovery or anything like that. Then you don't have anyone to actually talk to either, because not everyone has been through that situation. For one, not everyone has been through that situation as a law enforcement officer to add on top of that. So you have two dynamics colliding together. Then when you do talk to people and they give you kind of generic advice or something they don't understand and they think they're helping and they're not, they're actually, for lack of a better term, pissing you off even more because they're telling you tropes that don't make any doggone sense for the system. And you basically learn by going through either making the mistakes or just getting dogged through it.
Yep. Clee, I went from $2,400 a month to $260 a month. I ultimately end up gaining custody of both of those younger children and terminating 2 child custody orders or child support orders as well. So, like you said, people don't give you the information that you need. I found that a lot of men are just especially Black men, are just absolutely terrified of the idea of going to court because, like I know, court is where you have to lay it all out on the line. Mm-hmm. You bear your soul gets exposed. Everything you lay everything out when you're dealing with child custody. Whatever your habits are, you have to answer to them. How involved you are Really, you may think you're father of the year, but if you don't take your kids to school, you're not already paying child support, you're not at the events, planning the birthdays and things of that nature, you don't have a leg to stand on. But you may think you're father of the year, but the courts don't see it that way.
Yeah, I agree there too. And then when you go into courts, you talk to the attorneys and talk with her. I remember having a discussion going through the child this, the child that, and I'm stopping. I'm like, all right, it's my child. I know his name. I know what he likes. I know what the activities he likes. What's his name? How about that? Can anybody say his name besides me and the other person I'm going against? Nobody can say the name because we're case number XYZ123. And so you go through all that and you realize that it is a state-sponsored program, as opposed to when you're told that things will work out because it's honored by it's either honored by God or whatever you may believe in, or things like that, when really it comes down to state. I don't want to get too far into it because we're kind of getting off topic, but it's an eye-opener for sure. And anyone who is going through it, or anyone who may go through it, there are people out there that you can talk to that will understand. And please feel free, because it's not a fun process to go through, especially when you go through it all alone.
Clea, I wanted to jump back to community policing for a moment.
Let's do it, because we got off topic. I'm sorry.
Let's do it. So it would be easy for me to just hammer law enforcement. You need to do this. You need to do that. This is where you're struggling. This is where you're wrong. That's not what the Hughes Initiative is about. It is twofold. I'm a police coach, but I'm also a public resource. So we talk about the Citizens Police Education Program. This is the workbook for it. And this can be printed out for whatever group. It's a digital download once you get into the program. I created the Citizens Police Education Program because I want the playing field to be level. I said that earlier. Inside of this program, we use the crawl, walk, run method, where I explain to you the foundational stuff: reasonable suspicion, probable cause, the roles and responsibilities of law enforcement. We walk through Fourth Amendment search and seizures, Fifth Amendment. And then we run through the levels of encounters, which is probably the most important part of the program. Understanding the level of encounter that you're in with a police officer, what your rights are, and how to exercise them.
Right.
Once you understand the level of encounter that you're in, then you can protect yourself. We talk about Miranda, and we talk about traffic stops and the way that they should go, giving you the actionable steps that you need to take in order to protect yourself. You watch the videos, you see them online, people saying, I don't have to get out of my car, I don't have to do X, Y, or Z. Inside of the Citizens Police Education Program, we discuss all of these things, ultimately leading to the end of it, which is having a positive interaction with law enforcement.
Good.
Leveling the playing field. I've said it before. I use the Chick-fil-A method. I like Chick-fil-A, obviously. When you pull up to a Chick-fil-A and it's you in your car and that person outside holding a tablet, there are no surprises. You are going to order some form of chicken, whether it be grilled, fried, or a nugget. You may get you some fries or macaroni and cheese, throw a little razzle dazzle in there with a cookie or something, or a milkshake, but you're not going to surprise them. You know what you want. They know what you want. It is an efficient process.
Right.
That's what the Citizen Police Education does with the E.A.R Model for American citizens and law enforcement. When we interact with each other, we already know the same information. I take it to heart that there are police officers who steamroll American citizens, because it is not to that police officer's benefit for an American citizen to know their rights. And that speaks a little bit to the numbers-based policing that we have in law enforcement, where we start to dehumanize people. We cry as American law enforcement to have people see us as human beings. But when we're just steamrolling them, getting statistics and all of these things, that cannot happen. They cannot see us as human beings. We don't listen to their stories. We don't take into consideration what they may be going through. We don't give them the time that they would need or that they deserve from us if we decide to have an interaction with them. So that's what the Citizens Police Education Program is about.
I like that. And putting information out there makes it a level playing field, like you said. Not only does it educate the citizens themselves, so they understand, like the Chick-fil-A model. I like that. Once you pull up in this line, you know you're going to get X, Y, and Z, and then you will be released at some point to go about your business. So the citizen understands that. They understand, okay, I can and can't do this. This is why this may go left. This is why things may go bad, because I'm doing X, Y, and Z. But also on the officer's part, we want a peaceful interaction too. You know,
Right.
we're not looking to prolong anything. Most times, the simple taillight can turn into something very extreme when really, you know, your taillight's out. I wanted to let you know this because
Right.
I stopped you. I'm required to ask for these documents. I'm going to
Right.
check them. I'm going to return them to you, and I'm going to give you this slip to make sure that you get your taillight fixed. So therefore, you're driving safe, because
Right.
we've all seen a vehicle drive without, if one taillight's out, more than likely the other one's on its way out too, because they
Correct.
both thought
Correct.
we would assume they were both installed at the same time. So therefore, if you're driving with two taillights out and no one, the person behind you doesn't know you're stopping or slowing down, boom, that's how accidents happen.
Correct. And understanding that these are some of the reasons that police officers pull you over. And this is where the traffic stop, for instance, will go. We'll pull you over for a tail light. We ask you for this documentation. Now, the problem comes in if you don't have this documentation.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different story, but that's not the end all be all. We
Right.
pull you over, documentation, you either get a verbal warning, written warning, citation, or nothing as for something like that, unless you get arrested for something more egregious. But like I tell people when I stop them, you can make this worse. Just like in Pennsylvania, where I am. You don't go to jail for DUI if you're from Pennsylvania, unless you make it worse. Unless you fight, unless you run or something like that. But at the end of the day, you go home. I tell people that from the very beginning, before I even pull them out of the car to ask them to submit their standardized field sobriety testing. I tell them that this ends with you going home unless you make a decision that that's not going to happen.
Right. I like that. I like that. A couple comments on the floor. Let me see if I can get them back up here. Got Rich Oakley. Can I pull this one back up? Nope, it's too far ahead. Sorry about that. Got Seth third on here. Community policing starts with self. If you are in a community oriented, if you are a community oriented officer, just do it. We can't worry about our coworkers. Rich Oakley again, smiley face on the one comment. Again, hopefully your good works will rub off on your coworkers. Don't let your coworkers rub off on you. Lisa, excellent RC. What kind of education helps minority populations deal with police officers and interactions in safe ways?
Lisa, it's the Citizens Police Education Program. I created this program with minorities in mind. As a minority myself, the first time I ever had an interaction with a police officer, it ended with the police officer taking me and my 3-month-old premature daughter out of the car, putting us on the side of the road in August, and towing the vehicle. That was my first interaction at 19 years old with the police officer. Wow. I've also sat down with multiple groups of young Black people, and I let them, and they grill me for 2-3 hours. And I recognize a lot of police officers are not willing to do that. I get that. But having done that, what I learned was that a lot of where they're coming from with their questions and their understandings and ideas of law enforcement are from a place of emotion. I was able to educate them on their rights, the levels of encounters and things of that nature. I just took it, Lisa, and I just put it all together in this one program, which I reach out to superintendents and different groups about bringing it into their schools, because this education is necessary. I don't know what the curriculum in a lot of schools is, or how deep they go into it, or what the school resource officers' functions are at a lot of schools, but I created this for minority populations, white populations, Spanish-speaking populations, and as a guide for school resource officers to give them some programming that they could use in order to further the education for everyone.
Yep, I agree. And Richard Oakley's talking about Noble, a national organization of Black law enforcement executives. That's what the program's called, the law in the community. Lisa, watching warning signs for officer self-deletions that happen, and worked with an individual who was prepping for self-deletion, shaved his head, attitude changed, anger, and followed through with it. Pay attention to warning signs. I agree. So another question that we had on the table is something that we often see now, especially dealing on the detective side with cyber crimes, protecting children online. And the more that we have our phone, and you guys can't see it, the computer here. The more all these social media platforms are going up, it's harder and harder to monitor children today. They know the Wi-Fi password better than we do. They have that little computer device in their pocket. Gone are the days where kids play outside for fun anymore. Now are the days when they have access to so much knowledge they can't even handle it yet because their frontal lobe hasn't fully developed.
A good friend of mine told me a horror story about what's known as sextortion, where a scammer reaches out to a young person. And this was a story actually about an adult, but having heard stories also about young people where they portray themselves to be another young person. They end up getting pictures or videos of that child in compromising positions, and then they extort them for money. And after hearing a couple of those stories, I took it upon myself to reach out to a gentleman who mentored me when I was in college. We worked in information technology together. He comes from the Department of Defense. He was an analyst. And I said, hey, teach me this stuff in a way that I could give it back to American citizens. Don't talk to me with that, with that high level tech language, because I'm not going to be able to talk to people confidently or expertly about it at that level. Right. We've all been to places and conferences and things of that nature where we've listened to people talk and it's gone right over our heads and we spent 2 hours learning nothing. Right. I wanted to give people this information at a level that they can understand. I told him to teach me like he would teach a fifth grader. And so from that, I created the program Tech Savvy Parent, which is one that I put on for adults. And it's understanding at a basic level, Wi-Fi routers, what to look for on your kids' phones, and how to protect your family from this kind of stuff. But ultimately, you could do all these things, but they don't work if you don't communicate with your children. You have to have an open line of communication with your kids. You should be the first call, not the last call. And I've told plenty of parents, if you've taken that tough line approach with your kids, black and white, no gray, you're going to have a hard row to hoe to get back to where they can come to you confidently, because a lot of kids just won't include their parents because they don't think that they can even relate to them or even hear them or understand what they're going through. And as parents, we do struggle. I can tell you all the children, all 5 of them, I still see them as very small children. And the older they get, the more I feel they're separating from me, but having to realize that these are still babies. 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, they're still babies. They may have had some sort of adult exposure for 4 years, maybe, if they're 18 years old. We owe it to them as parents to guide them and give them all the information that we never were told, or what we were told, we have to give it to them as well. You
couldn't agree with you more. 100%. I know. I wanted to kind of piggyback on the story on keeping your kids safe online. Most of us are coming from a generation where we grew up somewhat before social media, or before the social media was a big boom, where kids today are growing up in it. That's a way of life. That's their norm. So therefore we have to have some sort of cognitive understanding how it is, how they think, and how kids are going to find ways to manipulate us. And I say all that to say, we have a kid who wants to buy V-Bucks to play Roblox or Fortnite or some innocent game online. And you know that most games you need credit card information now, because no games are free anymore. So therefore the parents, you supply the credit card, but you just want to add it in on however you want to add it to the phone. Sometimes that information stays on the phone. Other times I've seen kids put the phone on screen record, parents enter the numbers, then hand the phone back. So the kid already has the numbers, get a few pieces here, get a few pieces there. Then they're able to make orders with their credit card for whatever else that they need that's not video game related. You guys can use the Oscar Foxtrot. We can say that if you guys can figure that one out. And then they have access to a whole world of adult level activity at a very young age that the parents are paying for and don't know it until they check their bill, if they do. And they don't know how the child got access to the card when really they're just using the technology that they're being formed into.
Right. They're just manipulating the system. Also, with Tech Savvy Parent, I created it because wherever, unfortunately, it is an unfortunate part of this world. Wherever there are children, there will be predators.
Yep.
And games like Roblox, it could be Call of Duty, wherever they exist there. And there are some very high level predators on these applications.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't always that they would go there for their own personal motivations. But in the world we live in today, a lot of predators are there with the intent to traffic children. And that is a serious issue that we have, even just within this country, but throughout the world. Nationally, yeah. Yep. And thank you, Lisa, for tuning in. I understand she may have to go. She's saying great interview for both me and you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Rich Oakley. Yep. Amen. Rich Oakley again. Black and white TV. Longer the days. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, don't go anywhere because we're not done yet. We still got more interview coming up, but Certain Be Safe has some more holiday cheer for us. So let's watch this next cartoon and come right back into this interview. Stand by.
Yo, there's Sergeant Be Safe.
New Year's safety tips. I'm here having a good time, dancing it up with Captain Chaos and his K9 Kraken. We're going to give you a few safety tips so you can have a safe holiday. If you're going to use fireworks to bring in the new year, make sure you know your state and local laws. Also, make sure you're mindful of your neighbors and having them pointed in a safe direction and avoiding flammable objects. Adults, don't drive drunk. Make sure you have a designated driver. Or arrange for safe transportation home. And for those of you that like to have firearms, it may be fun to shoot them off in the air, however, that's reckless activity. What goes up does come down, and you can accidentally hit someone with a stray bullet, seriously hurt them, and or kill them. So don't change the course of your life or someone else's just to celebrate a holiday. Because you don't want to see the mean side of Kraken, as he has to be aggressive.
Release the Kraken!
Captain Chaos and I want you to have a peaceful and fun holiday. Celebrate 2023. Enjoy the new year. Live your life with a purpose and follow your dreams. And prepare for more cartoons of me and my friends, so we can give you more tips of the day to get you on your way.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a 2022. Oh, that's an oldie but goodie. That's a classic right there. Got one of my sons on the voice, doing a voiceover for me. That was a lot of fun. I got to make that one. But welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Continuing on with this interview, we got the wonderful RC Hughes III having a tremendous interview. And if you missed it, you got to watch the replay. Don't do it right now because we're still in the middle of a hot topic, and we're going to continue moving on throughout the conversation and discussion. But I want to talk about, my next question is, what challenges do you believe law enforcement faces now in overcoming, for one, recruitment, for one, the stigma, the social stigma, and the court of public opinion on how we're more demonized. We're coming out of it now. We're starting to become more mainstream again. But what challenges do you believe now and soon to be 2025 law enforcement faces?
It begins at the top, and it's with toxic leadership. It trickles down.
Okay.
As law enforcement, we have to be willing to change. some of the changes that we should have made 10 years ago, we haven't made, and now they have to be more drastic, because what's happening is people are leaving law enforcement, but the number of people who are coming into law enforcement doesn't match that.
Yeah.
So I would say within the next 5 to 10 years, if even that long, we're going to come to a crossroads where we have to change the way we do things completely. And it didn't have to be that way, but unfortunately, because there are people in positions who feel like, okay, we've always done it this way, even though we see that it's not necessarily working the way it used to, we're going to continue to do it. That's not going to help us. That's one of the bigger challenges is the underbelly of law enforcement, the subculture.
Right.
The internal resistance to change from officers as well. I'm sure there are many, many great leaders in law enforcement who have discussed and would like to implement change, and they just get so much resistance from their own people. There's a bunch of reasons why something may not work at the very beginning, but anytime you do anything, it's going to be ugly at the start.
Yep.
I don't care what it is, riding a bike, swimming, learning to write, which I'm learning with my 2 younger children. It's going to be ugly, but dealing with the issues that come up at the very beginning, so that in year 3, 4, 5, it's already smooth now because you did the work at the very beginning.
Understood.
So it's the toxic leadership, it's the resistance to change, and it is ultimately what people tell me is the lack of communication, the lack of communication skills. What I talk about in the E.A.R Model, it's that's what they're asking for. They're asking for better communicators as police officers. And so I take it personally upon myself to create something along the lines of how to teach communication. We hammer the younger police officers. We say that, all they do is stay on their phones. This is how they communicate. But we're looking at them from our perspective today.
Yeah.
No one came into law enforcement a master communicator. There are men and women in law enforcement with a lot of time on that still struggle to communicate. And a lot of that is struggling to communicate with people from different demographic groups.
Right.
The country's evolving. There are way more nationalities here than there ever were in the past. And as police officers on the street, we have to deal with them.
Yep.
I just put a video out today on my social media that race cannot be a factor. You have to interact with whoever you're sent to, whoever you pull over, and there's applications that you can use in order to have these conversations at a minimum. Yep. So the toxic leadership, the resistance to change, and the lack of communication are the struggles that we have now, and they're struggles that we've had in the past, but now it's becoming more important because the world is changing as well.
Good point. Absolutely. The world is changing, demographically, socially, the way we handled things before, like you said, just coming into, I'll just deal with it. Now it's, let's talk it through. Let's figure out what's going on.
Yes.
Memphis PD under 17th month federal investigation launch after Tyree Nichols.
I made a video about that.
Rich Oakley.
It really goes back to the mental health side of things as a police officer. I've been on proactive units before, and I made a video. I think it was probably last year when I made it, when this thing happened. We cannot leave people on these units where they see the worst of the worst day in and day out, and their directive is to go out and find that stuff and not expect them to be changed by what they see, what their thought process is, and who they interact with. Like, my department does a great job of cycling guys off of those units because I believe they understand that when you lay down with dogs, you're bound to get fleas.
Inevitable.
And it's inevitable. We've seen it in Memphis. We've seen it in Baltimore. We've seen it at different places across the country where police departments have groups that end up turning into gangs. Why? Because they are too close to that kind of lifestyle. And we know as Black men, that lifestyle is extremely intoxicating to a certain degree. It draws people in because it's one that, it's just exciting to us in some ways. It's just
glamorized. It's glamorized.
It's glamorized. Correct. That's a great terminology for it. It's glamorized. It's supposed to be fun. And when you come from maybe growing up in there, but not getting involved in it, and then becoming a police officer and going right back to it with a different level of authority and autonomy, it just happens. I do believe these things can be avoided, but we have to think about the person that's on these units. We have to think about the people and what they're exposed to in an effort to not have situations like Tyree Nichols.
Yep. There we go. RC, it's been a great conversation. And I know we got your website scrolling below. We also have it in the comment section. If anyone would want to get a hold of you, would that be the best way to contact you? If they wanted to get a copy of your book, was that the best way to get a copy of that? If they wanted to go through one of your courses and learn something or educate themselves or make themselves better, would that be the best way to contact you?
Well, let's start with the Dominate Your First Year as a Cop is available in my TikTok shop, which is the Hughes Initiative, and on the website, www.hiteaches.com. The Citizens Police Education Program, Custody 101, Tech Savvy Parent are all available on the website. All you have to do is submit an inquiry, and I will get back to you. We will have a conversation to see if what I have to offer as services, I can be of service to you. There has to be a fit there, right? It's not just it, but there has to be a fit for what you need. And if I can give it to you in that capacity, then I most certainly will. So I'm on all social media as well. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. I'm there as well. You can reach out to me on those platforms also.
There we go. And if you're on LinkedIn, he's tagged on that. If you're on the other platforms, make sure you look him up. He's a wealth of information. He's a great conversationalist. We were on the first time we were on the phone. I think we were on the phone for 45 minutes and we had a great conversation. It was just nonstop.
I told you, Clea, I'll hold anybody hostage for a conversation. My wife hates to take me to the store. She'll send me off on a mission. She'll come back 15 minutes later. I'll be in the flower aisle talking to a random lady about how to make brownies. I have an older Asian lady over by the grapes. She just can't take me anywhere. But as a police officer, you have to learn how to communicate with everyone, and I take that very seriously.
I like that. And before we go, I see a comment on the floor, and I agree with it 100%. The noisy child right here works the same. A lot of proactive police officers are former athletes as well. You get onto a team and you're ready to go do battle. I know that for sure. Speaking from my point of view, I used to jump out of planes in the Army, played contact sports growing up, being football, played semi-pro football, adrenaline junkie, action junkie.
Yeah.
Love being a door kicker, love going through, love that moment. So therefore being on proactive teams, therefore being in that high risk moment, you get that feeling again. So therefore you do have to find ways to cycle it, to make sure it's still healthy, that you're using it in the right way, because you start getting that feeling, then all of a sudden you're chasing the adrenaline as opposed to trying to do the right thing. I 100%.
I won't be too long-winded, but I learned how to manage that from a book called Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement by Dr. Kevin Gilmartin. In that book, he explains how, as a police officer, you change your level of homeostasis by having to raise your adrenaline constantly over time, so that when you do get off of work, it doesn't go back down to what a normal person's would. It actually goes back down further, leading you to a state of depression. And in your personal life, you're looking for things to raise that level of adrenaline similarly to what you have at work, which is really not possible. So that's a great point from the noisy child, who's also a good friend of mine.
Nice. Good point. I'm glad that you shared that. I'm stuttering just thinking about it, but I'm glad that you shared that comment, because it is very enlightening, and it's something that I like to share often, because not a lot of people understand that. And it is very the adrenaline rush is very fun. Being in dangerous situation is in the moment can be very scary, but it's also very fun, if that makes sense at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
It is.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, make sure you give likes, some thumbs up, some hearts in the comment section. Tag, like, and share. Let your people know we had a tremendous guest, RC Hughes III, on here. And I guarantee you this will not be the last time he's on the platform, because an hour just isn't enough justice to try and hone in all this information in a short amount of time. I tried to get as much juice out of the squeeze as I could, but we had so many topics to cover. I tried to get as much as we could. But make sure you guys do your due diligence. Make sure you check out out the websites, check out his social media platforms. Make sure you get his book or books, and maybe you too can be lucky like me and have yours already autographed when you get yours. Mine is autographed, but make sure, seriously, guys, check him out. He's doing tremendous work here. He's moving the needle forward here in law enforcement. Thank you for making yourself available to come on the show. I appreciate it.
Of course, Clee. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you guys have been a part of another tremendous episode of Black and Blue. The podcast is just for you, where we go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And when we go live with a special guest who is either a first responder or in law enforcement, and we talk about their training experiences and publications. And when they're either rookie season or retiree, and we have a tremendous time having that discussion, just like we did today. Great conversation. Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in. Like I keep saying, tag, like, and share. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves, educate yourselves. Don't fall for the norms. You know, we're humanizing the badge and we're moving this needle forward, and you guys can help us too. We appreciate it. We love you. Have a good night. We will see you next week, and stay tuned for what's coming out. I got a special guest coming next week. I want to tell you who they are, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to leave you with that cliffhanger. So you guys come back next week. Sergeant Be Safe is going to take us out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Be Safe here. We're going to do a roll call. Let me introduce you to the rest of the lineup. And here we go.
Hey crew, Captain Chaos here. I'm also a canine handler. Here's my dog Kraken.
Hello everyone. I'm Major Payne, in charge of this crazy crew. Nothing gets by me.
Good day, all. I'm SWAT Specialist Clay Moore, always ready to swoop in and save the day.
Hello, folks. It's the Eagle of Justice swooping in, providing advice to set things right.
Hello, Sergeant Be Safe, Captain Chaos. I'm your new district attorney, just in case.
He is our district attorney, trying to clean up the streets.
Yes, locking up bad guys.
All rise. I am the Honorable Judge Mint.
I'm a division attorney scot-free, and my guys didn't do it.
Ooh, I think I'm gonna like this city. Rob you blind here, and I'm here to cause total chaos.
Yeah, I'm Treacherous Tony. I deal illegal drugs and pills. My new friends Rob You Blind and Chance Wilder brought me into their crew.
Chance Wilder at your service.
I guess I'll just cross the street here.
You guys remember what almost happened to Megan. She doesn't always pay attention.
Oh, geez. I didn't even see that car coming.
Hello. Welcome back to my classroom. In case you forgot, I am Mrs. Gaynor.
Hello. My name is Maya. I could tell this is going to be my new favorite class.
Hello. I'm Nasty Nina, and I'm gonna divorce this guy and take him for everything he's got.
And I am her attorney, Wacky Techie, and I have nothing else better to do.
I'm Hal Monitor, the neighborhood watchman. I'll tell Sergeant Be Safe about any suspicious activity.
Oh my goodness, Curriculum said me, donde está? Tengo hace frío. That's why I'm a sergeant and you're not. I'm afraid. I'm worried. I'm trying to wait on these customers. I'm over here at Mario's bar. I'm afraid that something's gonna happen. You said you were gonna be here. You're not here, and I need you here now.
I am the esteemed and pristine Reverend Wade Waters. You make sure you make it here on the right day at the right time, because I got the right seat for you, all right?
And that wraps up roll call for you. See more educational skits on the podcast Black and Blue. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Never once said you were. It would be real simple if the problem was bad cops. It ain't.